All right. This week's long form tier list content is a 1v9 potential tier list. So, what this means is if the game is going to shit, how capable is your hero of taking over the game and winning it ostensibly on their own? Not entirely on your own, you still do have teammates, but if they're all broke and constantly dying, can you still make a big enough impact to eventually win the game? While 1v9 is the term, it's worth noting that no one is actually doing that. Like, maybe that was possible like way back in the day, but these days in the modern state of Dota and the raised floor of the skill level, no one is like genuinely 1v9ing. But the term has stayed strong because of how recognizable the situation is, and the act of 1v9ing is itself a point of pride for many people. However, this tier list still considers that you have living, breathing teammates. People who are not, if you have four people trying to grief you, you're going to lose. But if you have four people who are just kind of like pooping their pants the entire game, there are a couple of heroes that can still pull out a win. And there's a various, it's a spectrum. Not every hero can 1v9. In fact, I'd say that probably only a couple of them are designed to do so, but a lot of heroes can do so incidentally. Cores are going to be higher on average in this, but there are still plenty of supports that will be in the top tier, and quite a few in on the table as well. Speaking of which, let's explain the tiers, because I always forget to do that. First, default strategy. These are the heroes where 1v9ing is something that they are kind of meant to do. Like, when you pick this hero, you are making a silent declaration of like, if this game goes to shit, we might still win, because I will be able to outskill the entire enemy team on this hero, and this hero is capable of doing that. The second tier is on the table, meaning it can happen, but you're going to need a lot of help to do it. Or you need the enemy team to like walk into it. Like they need to not counterplay you in any capacity. And if that's the case, and you prep for it, which we're going to assume you do, we'll talk about that later, you could 1v9 on this hero. Magical Christmas Land is, in theory, you could 1v9, but you have to go like 8-0 in the laning phase and then keep that momentum going for the entire game in order to 1v9 as this hero. So it is possible. And then in the bottom tier, which will probably be the most populated, Hope for Commence. These are the heroes where you're going to lose. You're not going to 1v9 as these heroes. But in theory, you could get a commendation after the game, which will raise your good boy points. So you should focus on that instead. The things that make heroes good at 1v9ing are actually pretty varied. There is obviously just being able to walk into team fights and get a rampage and win the game. But having a very strong split push game is also really good. Possessing a semblance of wombo combo is also very good. Being able to delay the game to a ridiculous degree is also very good. Some heroes stand out in one of these categories, others have traits that put them in multiple to such a degree that they're better at 1v9ing. We'll talk about it as we go. I will say, and here's kind of a final note, we are assuming that you're trying to do this, right? You've built for the situation of 1v9ing, and the situation is upon you. So the example I'll give is on Crystal Maiden. If you're playing Crystal Maiden and you're going Force Staff, Ghost Scepter, those kinds of items, you're not 1v9ing. It doesn't matter. But if you're going like Ags BKB, your odds of winning a game go up. So we're going to be assuming that you're building for that capacity. And we're going to be talking a little bit about the strategies that you can use to enable this kind of gameplay as well for certain heroes. And without further ado, Abaddon. For so long, you avoided the bottom tier, but I think, is he Magical Christmas Land? The thing about Abba is that it is very easy to build counterplay to him, right? You buy one Yule's, and it's suddenly a pain in the ass for him, because not only is he getting a good chunk of his ulti completely wasted, but also you're stalling him out, and then also if you do it towards the end of his ulti, he can't blink out, which if you are going to, well, the thing about Abba, if they don't have counterplay to you, which you can do, is you play a style of core Abba where you go Divine Rapier, Blink Dagger. And the idea behind this is that whenever you ulti, your Blink Dagger is unable to be disabled. So you can always blink out towards the end of your ultimate. So if you go a bunch of Divine Rapiers on Abaddon and they have zero counterplay for stopping you from blinking at the end of ulti, you can go in and just like blitz people and then get out alive and keep your rapiers up. And that's cool. And that is so solidly Magical Christmas Land. I'm congratulations, Abaddon. You are no longer in Magical Christmas Land. Or you are in Magical Christmas Land. You're no longer in the bottom tier. 3 cheers for Abba. Hooray! Alchemist. This is definitely on the table for Alchemist, but in the current strat of Alchemist, where you're playing as Aghanim Scepter Slave, not so much. You are extremely reliant on teamwork with that hero. But in the more traditional form of Alchemist, where you're building on yourself, it is very much so true. One of the reasons why is because Alch sort of has like a full gank package built into himself. You know what I mean? If you go for a Blink Dagger, you have a long duration high damage stun, you have a damage buff in the form of your Q, you have a way to slow them down and like man fight them if they survive past the duration of the stun. You have a lot of things where other heroes would need help, but you are able to blink in and solo kill heroes totally fine if you have the advantage, which is big. And because the stun is AoE and you are an alchemist, you can oftentimes do it on multiple people as well, which is great. I wouldn't quite call it a designated strategy. There are a lot of components of Alch that do quite well with teamwork, and the hero needs a little bit of help oftentimes, but it's definitely on the table for him. AA is a Hope for Commends hero. Now, I know what you're thinking. I just got out of a game of Turbo, where I went Aghanim Scepter Dragonlance Witchblade, and I 1v9. First off, we're not talking about Turbo, we're talking about real Dota, okay? Second off, even if that is the case, and in theory, that can happen, but that is so much further Magical Christmas Land because, first off, mid AA, it never works in real Dota. I've never seen mid AA actually work out in a real game of Dota. And the counterplay is the default of kills you. So there isn't like any kind of complex shenanigans you need in order to deal with that. AA cannot 1v9. He can be strong. He can be a decent core in highly specific circumstances, but 1v9ing, not on the table. And Anti-Mage, designated strategy. How pretty. We got one in each tier. Anti-Mage is sort of one of the original 1v9 heroes for a couple of different reasons. One of which is his insane scaling and pick-off ability, kind of similar to Alchemist, except you have to buy an Abyssal Blade if you want to get a stun, or get lucky on the bash. But the real strength of Anti-Mage's 1v9 ability is the fact that he can split push like crazy. Blink is an extremely powerful mobility tool, and being able to push out waves and delay a game for a very long time is a great thing to be able to do. There are times, like I've had Anti-Mage games where, this was back when you had the blink distance talent way earlier on, I was split pushing one set of barracks and they came to deal with me and I just blinked to the other set of barracks and started hitting those instead. And by the time they came over, not only are some of their spells off CD, but also I'm just hitting another pair of barracks and then also blink is back up. So there's situations as Anti-Mage where you can be super annoying and you can 1v9 them purely off of the mobility of blink. Not to mention his insane farming speed with Battle Fury, he scales extremely well. Kind of dumpy right now, but this is more of a conceptual tier list anyway. For Anti-Mage, 1v9ing is absolutely a designated strategy. Arc Warden, also kind of a designated strategy to be completely honest. I said there weren't going to be that many heroes up here, and yet here we are. Very similar to Anti-Mage in the split push capabilities. If you go Boots of Travel, you're able to spend the clone out and delay the game by quite a bit. I think if you're going the magic build, it's much more difficult to 1v9, but if you're going completely all in on Hurricane Pike, Mjolnir, Scotty, Daedalus, that kind of thing, the damage is much more consistent. You're not nearly as susceptible to BKB. It can be a pretty good thing to do. Another nice part about it is the evasion provided by the bubble is on you. So if they pop a BKB and hit you, you are actually still fully protected by the evasion. It doesn't apply a debuff to them that BKB would purge. So that also is a big deal for his 1v9 potential, and you're very good at delaying the game. You know, if you and your squad are trapped in the base, you can still do stuff as Arc Warden because the clone is a lot more expendable. So we're going to put him in designated strategy. Weird. I did not expect at any point for this one to be the most populated, but hey. Axe. Axe can be he can be your primary win condition for sure. If an Axe has an incredibly good lane and is able to hit timings, there's a certain time where you go Blade Mail, Blink, Phase Boots, and you can kind of solo kill anyone on the map if you get those items fast enough. And it's very good. You know, heroes like Puck, who have innate defensive abilities or escapes, you'd have to be able to kill them in the duration of Berserker's Call, and that's tough. But for the most part, if you're able to kill like 3 of the people on the enemy team at any given time just by blinking in and hitting your buttons, that's a recipe to win a game. So you do need to snowball very hard. That actually puts him down in Magical Christmas Land, doesn't it? Yeah, because you can't hit buildings. The way that I defined it, he is down here in Magical Christmas Land, but his Magical Christmas Land is like a little bit less magical than others. It's much more believable, but it's not quite as on the table as Alchemist. Yeah, Axe, you have a chance, but you need to snowball from the very beginning of the game and never slow down. So yeah, he belongs here. Bane. Nope, can't do it. Bane is too intrinsically tied to a single target disables and abilities. In theory, what you could do is you could go Aghanim Scepter, Octarine Refresher, which, by the way, is still not enough to deal with his cooldowns because they are that long. You still have a 45-second cooldown in your ultimate, which is a great thing to have. But what you have to do is dedicate the rest of your inventory to, like, right-click. So I don't even know what you would go. You'd go, like, Daedalus, eat a Moon Shard, eat your Ags to make another slot, Mjolnir, Butterfly, Butterfly Bane. And then you cancel your ultimate on your main hero, allow the illusions from your Aghanim Scepter to hold them still, and then you just right-click them forever. And if you do this, you get a solo kill every 45 seconds, assuming that they have literally zero counterplay. And even that is not enough to win a game, and you can't hit buildings. Now, maybe if you go Butterfly, you can. Hope for commends on Bane. Batrider. You can be a freaking menace on Batrider, very similar to the way that Axe can. In an extremely similar way, because if you hit that certain timing, you're able to jump in on them and drag them away into Uncle Touchy's puzzle basement, and there's nothing that they can do about it. They won't wear a shirt, and they'll cry. But you need to have an extremely strong lane, and you need to get in a position of power where everyone is scared of you, and even then you can only kill one person at a time. The difference is that with Firefly, the thing that makes him not like Bane, is you have right-click potential, which is a huge deal, built into your character naturally. You don't have to build a butterfly on Batrider. But also Firefly and Flamebreak can deal damage to multiple targets at once, which is a big deal. So Magical Christmas Land for Batrider. You can be your team's primary win condition, but 1v9ing as this hero is very tough. Your ultimate is sort of intrinsically linked to the concept of teamwork. Beastmaster is also Magical Christmas Land. In a very similar way to Batrider and Bane, all single target disable ultimates. With Beastmaster, though, you can hit buildings like a mother trucker. You can do a lot of damage. And that's good. That's a win condition that Bane certainly doesn't have access to, and Batrider almost kinda does. Beastmaster's weakness is that he doesn't have a lot of AoE. If there's a bunch of enemy heroes that are crowded around you, axes are usually not enough to be able to kill multiple heroes in the duration of your Black King bar. So Magical Christmas Land for him. But he's got a little bit of a stronger argument than, no, about as equal with the rest of these, and you need to obliterate the lane. Bloodseeker. Ah, man, he's on the table. He doesn't have the complete ganking kit that Alchemist has, but what he does have is the ability to jump from target to target extremely quickly. You've been in those team fights as Bloodseeker, if you play this hero, where you go for the high HP target. Here's what you do. You go for the tanky guy, and you get him as low as possible, you kill him, and then you go for all the people who are endangered. And because you have so much movement speed boost from Thirst, you are just like lightning stepping from all of Flash Step from Bleach, I think. You're misty stepping between all of them extremely quickly, and you're able to wear down targets extremely fast. You do still need some help, right? You need one target to be low first, but if you're in a situation where you're super far ahead as Bloodseeker, you absolutely can 1v9. But if you're in that super far ahead position, it's usually because your team is doing okay. On the table for him. Bounty Hunter, no way. You can do some messed up things as Bounty Hunter, and you can get some kills that you don't deserve. But similar to Batrider, his ultimate is extremely linked to teamwork. In order for track to be good, you need your teammates to be around and at the very least helping you, when most of the time you're helping them. They're doing the heavy lifting, you're just helping them and yourself benefit more from it. And you're setting up ganks and such. He's too much of a teamwork hero. He's in Hope for Commends. Brewmaster is absolutely on the table, actually, especially in the current patch. But even when they remove some of the shenanigans that I'm currently taking much umbrage with this hero, Brewfriend is still going to be an on-the-table hero for 1v9ing. The reason why is because of Demolish on the Earth Bruling. The amount of building damage that he does, relatively risk-free, while also taking, I think, 20% magic damage. He's not spell immune anymore. He used to be straight up spell immune the whole time. There was a brief period where I think it was his shard, you could spawn a Bruling that would just hang out with you. And I remember watching someone, a friend of mine, use the Earth Bruling on a tier 3 tower to siege, and just thinking to myself, like, this is so unfair. This is so profoundly unfair. Because it's a spell immune dude who chunks your towers, and, like, you can't kill him, but even if you could, it doesn't matter. It's so risk-free. Now, obviously, you can't do that strategy anymore, but thanks to things like Aghanim Scepter, Octarine Refresher, you are able to put yourself in an extremely safe position, plus Blink Dagger for after the split resolves. You are able to put yourself in a position where you can just use the Earth Bruling to chow down on buildings, because Demolish is a messed up ability. Lone Druid is probably going to be a designated strategy later for very similar reasons. Brew is on the table, not to mention all the other stuff he can do. Bristle. You really need, like, one of the conditions of being in Magical Christmas Land is you need the enemy team to not buy any kind of counterplay, and Bristle is absolutely that. You know, one break, you can, I've seen Yules on this hero, I've seen Aeon Disc, specifically to deal with the initial burst from a Silver Edge, right? But the second break is where shit really hits the fan. A second Conda has hit the Bristle. If they have multiple breaks, it's very difficult to 1v9. You need them to buy absolutely zero counterplay. And if they don't buy any counterplay, you have a chance. But yeah, Magical Christmas Land for Bristle. Broodmother is a bit of a designated strategy, but 1v9 might not exactly be the proper way to say it. The idea behind Brood is that you want a super static laning situation and a very favorable matchup. If that is the case, you are able to just put the game in a position where it's almost impossible for the enemy team to win. If you have those Brood games where you're able to take the tier 1 tower right after you hit 6, bully the enemy laners out of it, and then take a tier 2 like under the 20-minute mark, and then TP to the opposite lane and do it again, like, oh my god. Like, I'm thinking Radiant offlane Broodmother, where you're able to just take 4 towers in like 25 minutes. If you hit those situations as Brood, it's not so much a late game 1v9 as it is an early game 1v9, which is a little bit different. And part of me almost wants to take her in on the table instead of in designated strategy. But still, I think the impact in the early game is so colossal as Brood that you 1v9 kind of right from the start of the game. And only later on are you like, all right, now I need my teammates to help. Bit of a weird case, but I do think it is a designated strategy. Plus, she's a very, very common hero among boosters and whatnot for a reason. Centaur, not really. There's going to be a couple of initiator offlanes who are in the higher tiers, but Centaur is not one of them. One of the big reasons why is because Centaur Warrunner requires his team or his enemy team to get involved in the process of killing themselves due to retaliate. It's a very powerful ability, and Centaur Warrunner can be a capital P problem, especially once he buys his third Heart of Tarrasque. But until that point, it's very difficult to assert yourself as a win condition. And even when you do, it's like, you know, the Ancient doesn't hit you back, so it's a little harder for you to take that building. Same is true for barracks, same is true for the money nuggets in the base. Towers you can hit, but every other building, a little tougher. You don't take Shrine any faster. CK, on the table, quite similar to Alchemist, actually. You are a one-man gank package. Ridiculous amount of physical damage, armor reduction as a damage amp, a stun with Chaos Bolt. You have a lot going on. And yes, there is counterplay in the form of AoE damage, and there are things that the enemy hero can buy in order to prevent that sort of thing. But a jump scare Chaos Bolt before they have time to react with Ghost Scepter, this kills the crap. So it's definitely on the table for him and his ability to chain ganks with his ultimate, and he can take Roche, and he can hit towers. There's a lot going on for CK, but even so, he's not quite one of the stereotypical 1v9 heroes. Pretty decent hero to be, though, in those situations. Chen. He's a weird one. I think his takes Magical Christmas Land. The reason why I'm putting him here as opposed to Hope for Commends is similar to Broodmother, you can kind of solve the early game in a way that makes it extremely difficult for the enemy team to come back. But also, you have a late game split push threat because of being able to use Divine or Holy Persuasion on Ancient Creeps. And that is an extremely powerful form of split push. Even if you don't have Ancients, you can still split push the hell out of the game in a way that doesn't necessarily end the game, but it sets the game up. Like, you could be in an absolutely miserable game state, but Chen could, in theory, fix that problem. So he's going to go in Magical Christmas Land as opposed to Hope for Commends, but maybe this is some Chen bias. Lynx. Ooh, you can... Ooh. Baby. Lynx is a 1v9 monster, mostly because of the building damage with Burning Army. Even after all the nerfs that they've done to it in the current patch, and in previous patches, it's been absurd. It gets to a point where he can just walk up. Like, you are actively defending your tier 3. 5 heroes. Some of them are sitting in the trees. Some of them are up front. He can just walk up and drop Burning Army and kill your tier 3 right in front of you. And there's not much you can do, aside from, like, click on Skellies. But if you do that, he's going to kill you instead. The single target damage is just completely monstrous, and it's fast. You know, I criticized Bane earlier for only being able to kill one person. First off, Clinks can kill multiple people in sequence, which Bane cannot do. But the sheer quantity of single target damage against both heroes and buildings really lets Clinks 1v9, and it's a very good experience when you do it. God, it is terrifying when you're like finally leaving base after a one fight. You killed everyone except the Clinks, and then you hear like, top barracks are under attack, and you see this skeleton bitch just wailing on it, dude. It's the worst. Clockwork, Hope for Commence. This hero is not a win condition. You can do a lot of funny stuff, and when you're behind his Clockwork, you can do some really funny stuff. And when you're super far ahead, you can just do funny stuff on Clockwork. I don't know why I'm trying to qualify it based on your net worth, but yeah, no, not a win condition, not even a solo kill monster the way that some of these higher heroes are. Hofer commends. Crystal Maiden, low key designated strategy. You know, again, this is assuming that you're building for this situation. Crystal Maiden is the first support who's up here because of the Ags build. Ags and BKB and Shard and your normal Frostbite, all of those things combine to create a hero who is a win condition, solidly. And if you have a BKB and they don't have an Abyssal or Global Silence or something like that, you're winning the team fight. The evil baby Crystal Maiden that I made an MMR scam not that long ago for has been a thing for a long time. But in the most recent era of Dota, because of her Shard being able to farm so effectively, it is actually a thing you should be trying to do. Crystal Maiden can take a very difficult game, and if she hits those item timings, get a triple kill, maybe an ultra, maybe a rampage, and turn shit around. Designated strategy for Crystal Maiden. Darkseer is magical Christmas land, and the reason why is you need a hero on the enemy team to make an illusion of. if you're playing against like a well-balanced team with no obvious weaknesses to Wall of Replica, you don't win. But if you're playing against like a Medusa who refuses to keep split shot off by default and you can jump scare her, you can win a game as Darkseer. And because you have, I think it's Aghanim's, yeah, normal punch that makes an illusion, you can make dos deuces. And if you have dos deuces, it's hard to lose a game. So Darkseer does have magical Christmas land, but it's highly dependent on the enemy draft, and you need to go like blink Ags. So, you know, he and Crystal Maiden, I guess, are kindred spirits. Dark William. D. Willie is, you know, you have the Ags bullshit, but it's like not quite enough. And your control package, you're sort of giving up a little bit of it. Because in order to cast your Giant Fear, you have to not be clicking them, and then it makes it harder to click them unless you do the full combo with Bramble Maze and everything else. But the sheer quantity of magical damage that she can poop out is kind of insane, to a degree where I do think she's going to go in Magical Christmas Land. Similar to AA, except AA you have to commit from the very beginning. This hero, you know, 8,200 net worth buys you Aghanim Scepter and a Moon Shard, and that's kind of all you need in order to do your thing. This hero needs a lot more than that. So we're going to put her in Magical Christmas Land. Dawnbreaker. Another character where, okay, can't hit buildings, very teamwork-oriented kit. She's going to go in Magical Christmas Land, but she has a pretty decent shot relative to a couple of other Magical Christmas Lands, because all you need to do is just, like, bonk. You just need to give him the big smack with your fat hammer, and then you can win the game. It's a straightforward idea, but being able to insta-kill people in the entirety of Star Fury is a tall order, and it's one of those things where they build counterplay on accident just because they buy armor or HP or whatever. So Magical Christmas Land for her. You can be not your team's primary win condition, but you can be the thing that pushes the rest of your team into also being win conditions and win. So 1v9, Magical Christmas Land. Dawnbreaker. Dazzle. No. You know, Core Dazzle it falls off like a freaking rock already. It's difficult to win a game as Core Dazzle as your primary win condition. And look, there's going to be people in the comments who are like, actually, it's incredibly powerful. If you had 25,000 net worth and you could give it to a Dazzle or a Sniper at the beginning of the game, and they're both going mid, Sniper wins. Sniper wins every fucking time. Hope recommends for Dazzle, and you can get plenty. Land a good grave or two. You got this. DP, tough. If this was still the era of DP where she was ridiculously tanky and she had her old innate that delayed damage, it would be a little bit easier. But in the current state of things, not so much. She is almost entirely reliant on spells for damage and impact. DP's right click is infamously ass. I joked about it in a recent video where I was like, if I ever do a right click tier list, she and Razor are probably going to be in the very bottom tier as like the absolute worst in the game. They freaking suck. Magical Christmas Land for DP. Because her attack animation isn't good and she's very cooldown reliant. But you can still be like the driving force. You do hit buildings. That's the primary thing. You cast Exo and you can, in theory, kill an Ancient very quickly. And that's nice. A lot of heroes don't have access to things like that. But the rest of the things you need to 1v9, she doesn't really have them. Disruptor. You can be extremely impactful as a disruptor thanks to the Aghanim Scepter upgrade, but you can't actually win the game on your own. You know, having one of these, Aghanim's Enhanced Static Storm dropped under your team really sucks, but it alone does not win the fight. You need other people to come in and, like, wail on them with ultimates or fat right clicks or big boy spells. Disruptor himself, not by bread alone. Not by bread alone, even if it's really good bread. Doom. Similar to the Axe situation, if you completely dumpster the lane and you're able to pick up probably like Aghanim Scepter and then cast it on yourself and then just stay on top of people with Shiva's Guard, you can do a lot as Doom. You can be extremely impactful, and you can, in theory, like kill multiple people with a single Doom as a result of the Aghanim Scepter. But your hero kit is sort of fighting against you in that capacity, because that 4,200 gold in an item slot could be going to something that makes your individual target Doom, you know, not as good as it was with Aghanim Scepter, but you could make yourself way tankier, you could make your initiation better, that's a BKB worth of opportunity cost, and yes, you can go them all, but the opportunity costs stack on top of themselves. So Doom is magical Christmas land. You can be a major driving force, and the real important thing about Doom is that if the enemy is attempting to 1v9, Doom can put the kibosh on that. He can... Avast, Whoa, plague upon... It's Eminem throwing the mouse. Or the rat. Is there a difference between a mouse and a rat? I don't know. Dragon Knight, magical Christmas land. He is a core, he can hit buildings, and he has the gank package. He can blink on you, stun you, kill you before you get out of the stun. If not, he can use his absurd cast range on Breathe Fire. The real 1v9, and if you don't know this... should I mention this in a video? I don't know if I should. The Rathalos skin for DK has a glitch where he's like borderline untargetable if you use it. There's a bit of a trick to set it up. Not even. You just use the Rathalos thing. The reason I'm bringing this up is so that to slightly raise awareness of this glitch that has been in the game for months. If you pick Dragon Knight and you have the Rathalos skin from the Monster Hunter event and you're in ulti, you basically have to click like 15 feet behind him in order to target him with anything. Or you can like A-click on the ground near him. It's a total pain in the ass. If you have that, you can 1v9 for sure. So you needed to pay money to not only Dota, but also Capcom a few months ago in order to 1v9 his DK. There you go. That's his magical Christmas land win condition. Drow, definitely on the table. The problem is you need bodies. Drow can deal a ridiculous amount of damage. Absurd. In terms of pure physical, she might have like one of the best consistent outputs in the game. Burst, not so much. There's other heroes that can do more. But being able to just lay into people with marksmanship arrows and deal that much goddamn damage over and over again is extremely powerful, and you hit buildings. And you can siege, which matters. But you're a Drow, so you need some kind of defensive tool. And sometimes that defensive tool is a well-timed Force Staff, a Glimmer Cape, or a Shallow Grave. Sometimes that defensive tool is a Centaur War Runner sitting in front of you. And you need something like that in order to make it work. And you can initiate, which is kind of tough, but that's not the biggest deal. Broodmother can't initiate either. Arc Warden, not so much either, but it's fine. On the table for Drow, through the strength of her consistent damage output, meaning she can deal damage to the entire enemy team, and also her ability to hit towers. Earth Spirit. Nope. It's a strong hero. You can do a lot of damage as Earth Spirit, more than I think a lot of people expect an Earth Spirit to do. But as far as being able to 1v9 the enemy team and destroy the enemy Ancient, it's not on the table for you. Sorry, friend. Hofer commends. He doesn't even quite have the early game pressure that I mentioned for like Broodmother and what other hero did I say that for? Chen? Yeah. He doesn't even quite have that. You know, you can set your team up for success hard as hell, but you can't win the game in the first 10 minutes, you know? Earthshaker. Earthshaker has a lot of potential, actually, because of Echo Slam. You need, like, one good... Like, if you go Kaya and Refresher and Chasm Stone, you just need that one good opportunity to go in and hit the R button, and then refresh, and then hit the R button again, and you can win the game on the goddamn spot. And that's something that doesn't... Like, assuming that they aren't BKB'd up, hell, even if they are, the amount of damage you can deal... If the game is good and suited for it, and they have, like... You know, if they have like a PL or a CK or something like that, it's kind of easy. You don't even need all 5 heroes. You just need that dummy to like walk up with all those dudes and then you can pop. And you can get a Rampage. And that is that our first like Wombo combo type hero to do it? A hero who can conceivably win a team fight all on their own? I think so. Wow, Crystal Maiden is also the Wombo combo hero. I should start using that term more to help classify. Yeah, Earthshaker is on the table because of the Wombo combo potential, being able to just like, nice game, dude. Give me your MMR. Take that shit like lunch money. ET, nope. You can do a lot as ET. But if you're in a 1v9 situation, a true 1v9, they're never staying asleep long enough for your ult to actually hit. Hell, they'll wake dudes up on accident. Lord knows an Ember Spirit has like hit Sleight of Fist once and just woken up all tons of heroes. Yeah, it's really difficult for Elder Titan to 1v5 in any meaningful way. He is a support hero for a reason, though he can do big smacks, and if you're doing the big smack build, you have a little bit more potential, but even then, it just takes the tiniest amount of counterplay, because there's also other heroes who can big smack, and they can big smack you sometimes even harder. So yeah, hope for commends. If you want to push him into Magical Christmas Land, what you do is you stack every single camp on the map 5 times, and then you put the ghost down, and then you go through the portal, and then the ghost, you position yourself in such a way that the ghost goes through 400 creeps. And then, as a result of that, you hit for 1,200, and then you are actually way more than 1,200. You probably hit for like 4,000. And then you go up and you Echo Saber hit the Ancient. but even for Magical Christmas Land, that is a little, that would make Santa blush. So, for making Santa blush, which his cheeks are already rosy, we're going to put ET and hope for commends. Ember, yeah, you can do it. You can do it. It's tough. You know, it's really tough with the magical build. Back in the day with the Ferrari 430, you could actually stack like 3 Battle Furies into Daedalus, and you could just insta-give people. It was awesome. But that is really no longer the thing to do with Ember Spirit. The magical damage build is a lot more difficult. And I haven't even seen anyone do the whole Battle Fury triple thing on Ember Spirit in probably 5 or 6 years. And the last person who did it, I think, was me. So... yeah, we're going to put him in on the table. The sheer damage output is great. You can run a team fight like crazy. The only problem is you can't hit buildings, but that's fine. You can have 1 weakness, and that'll put you in on the table. I mean, Crystal Maiden even is up here, and Lord knows she can't hit buildings because they took away the Kung Fu Maiden talent, where she gets 250 attack speed. Ench. Shades of Broodmother, actually. So if you get a super early Aghanim Scepter, you can play the game on creative mode as Ench and sort of win the game on the spot if they don't have like built-in dispels or any way to like actually kill you. Even if they do have built-in dispels, it's like, whoa, impetus upon you. She actually kind of does throw Raz at people. We're going to put her in Magical Christmas Land because of the requirement to get a super fast Ags and then snowball the game like crazy from there. You know, I mentioned you go 8-0 in lane and you keep the momentum going, you can win a game. 1v9 is Enchantress, so Magical Christmas Land for her. Enigma. You know, Earthshaker's in on the table. The only difference, the primary difference between Enigma and Earthshaker, I'm going to put him up here, because of his enabling, right? It's way easier to use if you're an underfarmed bitch, but you have an Enigma on your team. Black Hole is the opportunity to be the most you can possibly be. But the big difference between them is that Earthshaker is a consistent chain stun. He can use ulti, fissure, enchant totem, keep you guys stunned, do a shitload of damage, pop refresher, and do it all over again, and you're stunned the entire time. There is no opportunity to pop a BKB or something. Enigma does not have that, because he needs to be able to end the black hole, pop refresher, black hole again. The channeled nature of his spells makes it a little bit more difficult to 1v5, but the way that he's able to enable his teammates is very good. Both of these heroes can also hit buildings through the Eidolons and Enchant Totem. On the table for Enigma. Faceless Void, kind of a designated strategy, no? In current patch, I think he's, you know, I've seen the Battle Fury Aghanim Scepter build. I'm not a believer. You know, it can work. It can work for sure, but I still think that with Faceless Void, you need a little bit of teamwork. And because of that, we're actually going to move him in on the table. Double Chrono is extremely powerful, and unlike Enigma, it's not channeled, so you can do that and immediately keep 5 heroes, in theory, perfectly chronoed for like 10.5 seconds straight. But you do not have the damage to kill 5 heroes like that. You just don't. His kit is not really designed to do that sort of thing. So you do need a little bit of help. But if you have a little bit of help, you can definitely 1v9. You can 2v8 as Faceless Void 100%, especially if you have an Invoker. And they don't have an ABBA. Grimstroke. You know, I glaze Dark Portrait every opportunity I can, but there's just no chance. It's not enough. You know, they buy a Scythe of Vice and then still instantly kills the illusions, even though their spell, or no, they're not debuff immunity. Well, are they? I don't know. Whatever. Hope for commends for Grimstroke. He's a supporter's support. Gyro, designated strategy. Flat Cannon as an ability makes this, you know, you look at Gyro on paper and you're like, oh, that's what this hero was meant to do. He might be the most designated of all the designated strategies here. especially because he has very little teamwork oriented in his build outside of being able to stun people and then your friends can wail on them. But like, whatever. It's true for almost any stun in the game. Flat Cannon alone puts Gyrocopter in a designated strategy, and he has the GPM potential to back it up. Yeah, he's top tier for sure. Let's go, Gyro. I wish you were playable. Hoodwink. Top Sun. Hope for commence. You know, you can blitz the shit out of one guy. Hunter's Mark and your ulti, and you get a Kaya and like E-Blade. I've seen the combos. I've done it on the dummy target in demo mode, and it is absurd how much damage you can do as Hoodwink. But it's only to one target. You're limited by cooldowns. You don't have any real defensive capability outside of that E-Blade. Hope for commence. Well, scurry, but still, hope for commence for Hoodwink, and you can't hit buildings. The Nut will not bounce off of towers. Huskar, designated strategy. This is a character who can hit buildings, can solo kill, can initiate one-man gang squad with Aghanim Scepter that also pierces BKB. He can solo Roche, he obliterates the lane and therefore puts the enemy hero behind and eliminates their capacity to 1v9. There's a lot that's going on with Huskar with 1v9. There is plenty of counterplay, there is. But again, even like one instance of counterplay is not enough for Huskar. So he's going to go in designated strategy. Friendly reminder that Necro is not as good of a Huskar counter as you think, by the way. He's up here. Invoker. It's on the table, man. You really don't want to have to 1v9 as Invoker. Of all the like big dick mids, he's one of the ones that you really need like a little bit of help. You need some follow-up or some initiation. You know, you can be the initiation, you can be the follow-up, but it's difficult to be both of them to such a degree that you win a team fight all on your own. But if you get ahead on this hero and you're really like booling, it's tough, man. The Rod of Atos build, humorously, which I like to call, well, I'll talk about that in a sec. The Rod of Atos build is probably the best way to do this, because you get Glitnir build, and then you can Chaos Meteor and Deafening Blast and Sunstrike very consistently without having to use Tornado to set it up and all the variability that comes with that. What I was going to say a couple of seconds ago is he used to have the shard that gave you the triple meatball, and one time, me and the boys were playing a game of probably Turbo, and we played against an Invoker who went Rod of Atos Shard. He's like Brown Boots, Rod of Atos Shard. And we lovingly referred to that build forevermore as Training Wheels Invoker, or no, Tricycle Invoker. Because it's not even Training Wheels. Rod of Atos is the Training Wheels. But now you've also got the meatballs, so you can't miss. Literally, like, spending your first 4,000 net worth on just making sure you don't miss your skill shots is very funny. But, you know, the reason we were laughing about it is because we were also dying. You know, we quickly bought a Manta style or, like, literally any form of Dispel or Magic Resistance, and we were fine. But yeah, Tricycle Invoker might actually be the way that you 1v9 in a weird arc of poetry, though you no longer have access to triple meatball through Shard anymore. Io, not a chance, bro. Not a snowball's chance in hell. That's what you are. If you're in a 1v9 situation as Io, you are a snowball in hell. Hope for commends. And you'll probably get some. You'll get some from me. Jakiro. You can hit buildings, you can contribute greatly to team fights, but Lord knows you do not have consistent single target damage. You can be a very strong backup dancer to the guy who is 1v9ing because of your ability to keep creep waves alive through Fortify, your ability to wear down towers, your ability to help him set up and counter-initiate with your W. Not even counter-initiate, just like stuff their initiation. You've got some tools to help another guy 1v9, but you? No. No chance. Jug. It's on the table. You're not quite as good as some of the other, like, big Agi carries because of your sort of inherent lack of mobility, but Spin is very strong. A well-placed Omni Slash can get you there. He's here for very similar reasons as Earthshaker. If you are extremely farmed and the enemy team are a couple of silly goober babies, there is a chance you hit the R button and you instantly win the game. And that alone is enough to put you in on the table, not to mention the consistent single target damage. Yeah, on the table. And you're good at hitting buildings because you can hit them with Spin. Keeper of the Caudal. We're back. You know, I'm thinking the mid build right now, where you go E-Blade, you Solar Bind someone and you Dagon them and Illuminate and you somehow deal 19,000 magical damage. You know, if you're playing as mid Caudal and you're going for that, you can. And yes, it is single target, but the thing is you're not really limited by cooldowns, because you have Chakra Magic, first off, and second off, none of those are your ulti. You know, you don't need ulti in theory to do that. It helps, Lord knows. but you're not nearly as limited by cooldowns as some of the other big single target pickoff heroes. So I'm going to put him in Magical Christmas Land. But even as a mid that's snowballing, you need someone else to hit towers. Kez, absolutely. Absolutely. I almost want to put him in Designated Strategy. I am. The thing that makes Kez sort of unique compared to a lot of the other right-click heroes is the amount of AoE options and mobility you have. So the Echo Slash, where it hits twice, that's AoE. You can hit multiple heroes. Slows kind of sets it up for itself. Raptor Dance is a ridiculous amount of AoE. They can kind of clear out the chaff as well, which is good. You have mobility, you have defensive tools in the form of your Invis and your Silence. Designated Strategy for Kez. He sort of has everything that he needs to 1v9. It's just a matter of staying alive, which can be a little bit difficult as Kez. He's a little bit squishy. Hollow bones in these birds, but still, Designated Strategy for him. It feels right for him to be up here. And he can hit buildings. Not as great as some of these others, but he can hit buildings. Kunkka. Borderline want to put him in Hope for Commence. We're gonna put him in Magical Christmas Land. The way that you would probably do this as Kunkka, even today, is doing all in on Tidebringer, where you go Silver Edge and Daedalus, and you try to cleave people off of creep waves nearby and one-shot them. You know, the attacker shenanigans can probably get you pretty far. But the way that a lot of people prefer Kunkka these days is with Aghanim Scepter and playing him as a big teamfight disruptor tanky guy. That's a lot harder to 1v9. But if you're doing the full-on right-click build, there is a chance. So we're going to put him in Magical Christmas Land. And the enemy team refuses to buy armor because they don't know how cleave works in the big 26. Largo. Dude, when Largo first came out, it was a designated strategy. You eat shit, you buy a Midas, you slowly farm up like Aghanim Scepter and Shivas and all your bullshit, and then you can just win the game all on your own. These days, not so much. I think it is, they've changed it so much that I actually think it's Hope for Commence. Yeah, he just doesn't have the absurd late game healing mobility combination. And even then, he couldn't hit towers. You know, similar to Jakiro, he can really help another hero 1v9. He can do a lot to help another hero 1v9, even if he himself has literally nothing. He could be a naked frog and still contribute. But as for him doing it himself, he's not that guy. LC. I mean, when it comes to single target damage and lockdown, it's hard to find a hero better than her. Even Bane is worse than her in some capacities because he has to be channeled and he can get stunned out of it or they can get purged. No such case for Duel. I'm going to say yes. Magical Christmas Land. You know, because the thing about LC is similar to Doom. You can take the guy who's attempting to 1v9 and then remove him from the game. Not that that is that relevant for where they get placed on this tier list, though it does kind of matter for their character identity. The big thing is if you snowball super early on, you have a ridiculous lane, you get a super fast blink, you get to skip Blade Mail because you have a Skywrath or something on your team, you go back for it later, you can get in a position where you have so much dual damage that you can like effectively split push as LC. And you don't need that, like your net worth doesn't need to be crazy, you just need a shitload of dual damage. And with the level 25 talent, you can now duel someone, win the duel, and then immediately turn around and duel their bestie, like right behind them. So it is Magical Christmas Land situation, but I think the level 25 talent does put LC up here. Leshrac. You can do a lot. It's on the table for sure. Especially because they changed it. You can no longer get the double damage off of Diabolic Edict. Now it always hits buildings. That really contributes to his 1v9 potential. In the previous instances of the game, you actually weren't 1v9ing against this hero at all because you couldn't hit buildings anymore. Now you most certainly can. On the table for Leshrac. Plus, very consistent AoE magical damage. It's magical, which is a little bit unusual, but the sheer quantity of it and the fact that it is so sustainable, it's really just a matter of keeping yourself alive long enough to deal all that damage, which is tough. It's very difficult. But it is on the table, and you don't need to be in Magical Christmas Land because you're able to kill both heroes and buildings. On the table for Lesh. Lich. I'm kind of want to hot take this one. My hot take is that he's in Magical Christmas Land, actually. Dude, you can do... I've seen Liches. I've been this Lich, even, who goes Aghanim Scepter Refresher. And because of Aghanim Scepter, you're able to cast spells during Sinister Gaze and use items and such. What the game kind of doesn't tell you is that one of those things is Sinister Gaze. So if you're using it and you refresh, you can continuously massive AoE chain stun that drains mana and pulls them, and you can use 2 ultimates during it. And you can, like, team wipe. You know, you can kill 4 dudes. 5, tall order, but you can absolutely, in Magical Christmas Land, kill 4 people as Lich. So we're gonna put him there. It's the minorest of hot takes. You know, oh, what if they just sit in Macropyre for the entire duration? Shut up. No one's doing that. Lich, it's theoretically possible. So Magical Christmas Land. I've seen it. Lifestealer. You know, he can 1v5. We've seen the Arteezy Rampage, and if you haven't, just stop what you're doing right now and look it up. I'm a little bit torn. The reason why is because Lifestealer is almost entirely single target damage, and Rage only lasts so long, and you are susceptible to being bursted. You can hit buildings, which is very good, but you lack the mobility. Your defense is very good because of Rage and Aghanim Scepter, which we're assuming you have as a blessing. My blessings upon you. But on balance, it's a lot harder for him to 1v9 compared to some of the heroes up here in Designated Strategy. But you can do it for sure, especially in the current patch. Lifestealer is freaking broken. I still think the Axe is messed up. I see people on the internet talking sweet about Lifestealer Axe, bro. It's broken. Third item, always. Lina. I've had one of my most insane games of all time was actually on Lina. I'm gonna put her on the table. It's a character where you really need to own. But what's kind of cool about her is that you can 1v9 in 2 different ways. Because you can 1v9 as Magical Lina, for sure. Cooldowns are a little bit of a problem, but like not enough. Not to the same degree as some of the heroes down there. But you can also go physical. And then you have really consistent physical damage and you can hit towers. Probably the better option, Physical Lina, if you're going for that. But yeah, on the table for Lina, for sure. One of my craziest games ever. I can't remember my exact KD. I was playing a turbo game with some of my boys who were lower rank, and I went mid Lina. I can't remember why. I think I just wanted to. And I remember I went like literally 30-0. It felt like I was smurfing like crazy, because I kind of was. It's just like the MMR gap was so whack that I was on my main account, but I wound up going 30-0 just because the people I was going up against were sumo babies, and I was just slamming into them as a fully grown sumo. So on the table for Lina. You do not need the entire enemy team combined to be your MMR though. For that to happen. But if it happens, hey, cool. Lion. You can kind of run away with games as Lion, but I don't know if you can win them. You know what it is? It's the Fist. Which I'm still not super keen on Valve. I'm glad that they took away the damage off of Mana Suck, but giving Lion like boof melee mode is something I'm still not keen on, but you could use that to hit buildings. So we're gonna put him in Magical Christmas Land. Use Finger on the creep wave with Axe, you get that low cooldown, and then you can use the enhanced Finger attack in order to smack buildings. So there you go. Magical Christmas Land. Note that you don't need a bunch of heroes to stand in Macropyre of their own free will. You can just do this on your own. Split push Lion, Deska. Lone Druid. This is a 2v9. But absolutely you can do it. The bear is a monster. Being able to demolish from infinite distance away means that he is going to be one of the strongest split push threats in the entire game. Not because the bear is necessarily mobile, unless you go like Silver Edge or Blink Dagger or something on the bear, which sometimes you do, but just because of the sheer speed at which he can kill your buildings. By the time you've TP'd back, your tier 3 is dead. By the time you TP back again, your range Rex is dead. Melee, you get there in time, but it really just means you get to sit there and watch. You're not stopping it. Yeah, Lone Druid is absolutely a designated 1v9 hero. 2v9 hero. Luna. Do like me some Luna. Luna has extremely consistent physical damage. I don't quite know if it's designated. It can be, because she has all the tools, you know? She has her ultimate that deals kind of passive damage. She has multiple ways of dealing damage while stunned between her ultimate and the rotating glaives thing that I always forget the name of, which is an extremely strong spell, by the way. She has it all. The only issue is her scaling. Her ceiling is like lower than a lot of other characters. But if you go for something like a Daedalus, you can still fuck people up a lot. Yeah, we're going to put her in Designated Strategy, but it's not as hardcore as like an Anti-Mage or even a Gyro or a Kez. Fun fact, if you go Spell Lifesteal on Luna, you will lifesteal off of the glaives bouncing, off of your right clicks. They don't benefit from normal lifesteal, but they do benefit from Spell Lifesteal. Don't buy a Bloodstone. Like, I'm not telling you to buy a Bloodstone. Don't do that. But, you know, just letting you know. Lycan. Single target damage, extremely fast, can hit buildings, kind of on the table. And you can be a zoo hero. You don't quite have the lane threat that a Beastmaster has, but in exchange, you have right-click damage out the wazoo that you're also hasted during. So in a way, you play a little bit more like a Bloodseeker of all heroes. You jump from target to target, you use your movement speed as an advantage, and you're extremely good at hitting buildings. Yeah, on the table. You don't have a stun, but that's fine. Lycan, you can do it. You can 1v9. I guess you have the wolf, so it's 3v9. You also have Helm of the Dominator, and you spawn the Skellies. So it's a... Hold up, let's do the math. That's a 7v9. You have a Courier that's an 8v9. I think that's as much as you can do. I was trying to make it even. Trying to make it fair. Magnus. I think he's, he's on the table. The thing, well, is he? He's a very teamwork-oriented hero because of RP and Skewer, and you need the enemy team to fuck up and not do anything about. You just need to be able to kidnap them with impunity over and over again. But even then, it's not entirely you. But Empower, if there's like a PA is going to be in Designated Strategy, by the way. You are like the 2v8 sidekick of champions, because you can like mag PA. But Magnus himself, I just don't think the damage is there. I'm going to hot take this and put him down here in Magical Christmas Land. No, I'm not. Yes, I am. I already said it, and past me is very smart. I trust me of the past. Marquis. Oh boy, I love anime. Low-key on the table, though. She is an insane win condition as a hero, being able to use her ultimate to just trounce people. And then, using ultimate in order to take things like Roshan or Tormentor or even like a tier 3 is a pretty powerful thing to do as well. So we're going to put her in on the table. Marcy is a very strong 1v9 potential character, especially with the Aghanim Scepter. So you go like Ags, Basher, BKB, not in this order. Ags, Basher, BKB, probably Daedalus or something. I don't know. On the table for Marcy, though. Very, very strong hero. Mars, not quite. I actually kind of want to put him in Hope for Commends. He just doesn't have the damage, and he can't hit buildings. There's a lot. He can tank buildings. That's cool. But there's a lot of boxes that are not being ticked by Mars's kit for the sake of the 1v9. Also a very competent backup character, similar to Magnus, but Magnus hits buildings at the very least and can yoink. Mars can't yoink. Well, he actually kind of can, but he doesn't come with his own yoinkings. He has to walk his way back, preferably under the effects of BKB. Deucey. Oh, baby. Deucey might be the most designated 1v9 hero in the entire game. We're not ordering the tier list, because it's kind of a silly thing to do, especially with 127 things to order. But Medusa Split Shot is basically designed to help you 1v5. Her farming kit is so insane. Mana Shield tilts everything and makes it super awkward to try to counterplay against her. You wind up buying Diffusal on Sven, which you should never do. Even if you are against Medusa, don't do that. Stone Gaze gives you a guaranteed way of either protecting yourself or enforcing physical damage on the enemy team while they run and you chase and you attack them. You hit buildings, you clear out group waves in a goddamn flash. You're very good at delaying the game because of Split Shot and being able to clear out group waves incredibly quickly, not to mention the synergies with Manta Style. There's so many ways that Medusa is a 1v9 hero. So many ways. The scariest thing about playing against Medusa is when she's in a very strong position and you look at her inventory and you basically see 3 item slots. She's 6-slotted, but some of those items are like Aghanim Scepter, which she can get rid of. Power Treads, which she can get rid of in favor of like a Swift Blink. She can eat a Moon Shard. There's always room to grow on Medusa, and that is terrifying. Not to mention the Divine Rapier potential on this hero. I should have mentioned that with Gyrocopter as well. Flak Cannon and Split Shot are very similar in many ways. Designated Strategy, probably the most of any hero, is Medusa. Meeps. Yep. If you get a little backup from Meepo, it's actually a 9v9. Because you have your teammates. Where are the 4 people on the enemy team coming from? Who knows? Maybe they have a secret Meepo of their own. I had an idea the other day. It's just stupid. What if there was a game mode of Dota where at 45 minutes... No. You have your neutral items, and the neutral items at 60 minutes go hard as hell, right? Those are like ridiculous items. If the game keeps going and it hits 80 minutes, there should be a queue where you're allowed to queue up to play as a Magnus that is dropped into 80-minute long games. And so at 80 minutes, each team gets a Magnus. I don't know why I'm thinking about this now with Meepo. But turn Dota into a 6v6, the Magnus only queue. And if there's already a Magnus in the game, boo-hoo, you're going to get another one. Dueling Magni. Interskewer reactions. Meepo. Yeah, do I need to say anything? I feel like he is also an extremely designated 1v5 hero. Yeah, I don't need to tell you why Meepo is up here. You know why already. Hits buildings, does consistent physical damage, extremely tanky, difficult to take down, capital W, capital C, win con. Designated strategy for Meepo. But I'm serious about that Magnus Q thing, though. Actually, 80 minutes in, I'd be queuing up to play as the surprise Magnus in super long games. Mirana. Nope. Nope. Right click Mirana at the start of 7.41 when they gave her weird orb effect thing. I was like, oh, cool. Carry Mirana's back. I was wrong. It's actually like some of the worst it's ever been. It really isn't good at all. Mirana does not have it in her kit. Just does not have the variety. You can still play a strong right click Mirana, but like, I'm voting Elder Titan in that 1v1. So, hope for commence. Hope for commence. She's got a cat to run on. She'll be all right. Monkey. He's on the table, mostly because of Wukong's command and Jingu mastery. Being able to plop down a giant circle deny is so freaking strong. It's some of the strongest area denial in the entire game, because BKB doesn't even necessarily protect you. The monkeys still smack. So the combination of that, being able to just put it down on the opponent's high ground and just take their racks right in front of them, that's already extremely powerful. But then you also have Jingu Mastery. Jingu Mastery grants a metric shitload of attack damage bonus and also gives lifesteal, which is benefiting Boundless Strike. So you're able to take a team fight, even if they go on you and they don't burst you, as long as you can reach Jingu and drop Boundless, you're like at full HP all of a sudden, and they are notably not. A lot of 1v9 potential is Monkey King. Yeah, on the table for sure. But I wouldn't say it's a designated strategy for him. Morph, designated strategy. In an ideal Morph game, you end 0-0 and 0 because all you ever did all game was hit creeps and hit towers, and that's it. You are extremely good at split pushing. You have inherent mobility because of waveform. You can also steal their defensive capabilities whenever they come to deal with you. You are so good at hitting buildings. So good at hitting buildings. Designated strategy for him. The scaling is ridiculous. The mobility is nuts. The building damage is nuts. The damage is nuts, just on heroes as well. Yeah, you can do it. Every time I look at this, I think designated is spelled wrong, but it's not. I need to get that out of my head. Muerta. You know, it's on the table for her. The problem with Muerta is she's not really the kind of hyper carry that gets rampages. She kills the 3 most important people on the enemy team. Really just 2. In the duration of her ultimate, and assuming that they don't have BKBs ready. And even if they do, you still smack them goodly. You're good at hitting buildings. You're not so great at creating the game state that you want. You know, she's a hyper carry that doesn't go Manta style, which is kind of a weird thing. Like a lot of like Morphling, Medusa, Luna, Anti-Mage, you know, Gyrocopter doesn't go Manta style either, though I've done it before. And CK has a Manta style built in. Drow goes Manta. Like, it's a very common thing. Because when you go Manta style, you're able to push out lanes to an extreme degree and very safely. And you're able to use it to like, you know, if you send out a clone and they burn 1 ultimate, congratulations, you now delayed the game by an entire minute for the sake of popping Manta, for the cost of it. So Muerta kind of lacks that capability of creating that game state that she wants by delaying the game with Manta style or long range wave clear. Deadshot is not enough. Maybe if you go Aghanim Scepter, but if you're doing that, you're not prepping to 1v9 in the first place. Ridiculous amount of damage, absolutely, but there's some problems with Muerta in trying to 1v9. You have a shitload of damage, and you're very hard to kill while you're in ulti, but usually not enough to take out the entire enemy team. On the table, though, for sure. You can 1v9 as her. Naga Siren. Speaking of creating the game state you want. As a carry, yeah, it's a designated strategy for sure. As a position 1. You can 100% just choke out a game entirely. And the really cool thing about Naga Siren is you don't need to snowball super hard, the way that a couple of the other 1v5 heroes need, 1v9 heroes. Instead, you are able to create the game state because of illusions. Manta style, those are 2. You've also got mirror image, and you've got 4 more. Your scaling is completely ridiculous. If you go something like a Radiance, your farm speed is nuts. You're able to do all sorts of really cool things on Naga Siren that not only contribute to a long game, but you yourself benefit from that game going ridiculously long because of the same reasons you were able to make it go long. Illusion generation is extremely powerful, even with everything Valve has done in order to try to mitigate the impact of it. Naga Siren takes advantage of it better than any other character. Designated strategy for her. Well, what about Terrorblade? He'll be in the same tier. Don't worry. Nature's Prophet. Gonna take a drink of water. Designated strategy. The split push is nuts. The stat gain is nuts. You are sort of a template for the items that you buy, which in a 1v9 situation is kind of a good thing to be. But unlike Alchemist, who is relatively similar, you have a double-digit combined stat gain, and that's kind of crazy. It's mostly just the stat gain and teleport. The split push pressure is insane. You're also able to keep waves pushed out thanks to saplings. There's a lot going on with Nature's Prophet that heavily contributes to a 1v9 playstyle on him. As much as I hate to say it, I hate Nature's Prophet so much. He's up here in Designated Strategy. A reminder that being in the top of this is not necessarily a compliment. A lot of people hate playing with these kinds of heroes. And even more people hate playing against them. Good lord, I hate all of these heroes. Unless I'm playing them. Necrophos. It can happen. It can happen for sure. If you're playing as a mid Necrophos and you get a really good matchup and you're able to get that fast Radiance, I'm not a big believer in the BOTs immediately afterwards. I think you go like, well, you used to go Eternal Shroud, but Valve took that shit out back. Eul Scepter or Shard or some other kind of defensive tool I think is necessary, and then you can go BOTs. You can snowball like crazy on Necrophos. You can snowball hard as hell, and you have access to one of the most insane snowball tools in the entire game with the combination of Heart of Tarrasque and Aghanim Scepter. That, combined with Radiance, combined with Heartstopper Aura, is so much passive damage. And that is something that they can literally be chain stunning you. You can be Bane ultied and hexed at the same time. But you are still dealing all of that damage. And if you're far enough ahead, that damage is lethal. And even if you're not that far ahead, you can still fuck people up. Good. By the time you get within cast range of like your Q, they're already at like 2/3 HP. And that number is not going up. So it's on the table for him, but you need to snowball crazy hard. Other than that, you're just kind of playing Necrophos, which is still usually enjoyable. Until they nullify you. Night Stalker. You can be extremely powerful as Night Stalker, but you are limited by cooldowns in a way that no other hero really is. Because yes, you do have your ultimate in order to make it nighttime during the day, but Dark Ascension has one hell of a cooldown, and that means that even if you're using it completely optimally, 30% of your time, minimum, actually probably more, it's probably like 35, I don't know the numbers exactly, 35% of the game, you are a bitch. It's daytime and you don't have Dark Ascension, you can't be a Night Stalker. You can't do your thing. You know, you're missing out on a triple-digit number of attack speed. You could be hasted. You could be flying. You could be taking advantage of your ridiculous nighttime vision. You miss out, like, all your spells get weaker too. 35% of the game, and that's a large amount of the game. You don't get to be a Night Stalker. You don't even farm good. You need to just park your ass in a lane and hope it works out. Magical Christmas Land for NS. Sorry, bro. Nyx. Man. You can't 1v9 as Nyx, but good lord, you can 1v1 like a motherfucker. You just bully Muertas all game. It's the worst thing ever. You can't really do it. You can't do it on him. Hope for commends, though. Hope you don't get reported would probably be better for Nyx. Ogre Magi? Nah. You can do a lot. You can be a very contributive character in a 5v5, for sure. And you can even be a bit of the star of the show. But as far as 1v9ing goes, absolutely not. You can go core offlane Ogre Magi, and you can go Aghanim Scepter and Kaya and Sanj and all that bullshit, but it's still not enough. Hope for commends on Ogre Magi. Omni Knight. That golden swang. Oh man, that does a lot of damage, and it's pure. You have access to multiple forms of pure damage, though purification is like not enough to be considered a win con by any means. I think he's in hope for commends. You can really put the kibosh on someone trying to 1v9 between Repel and your ultimate. Guardian Angel is very strong. You're sort of a defending 1v9. You can win games that you shouldn't have any business winning, but you're not the one winning them, you're just the reason you didn't lose. Hope for commends. Oracle. Well, we're having a bit of a run here, aren't we? Oracle can't do it. It can't be done. Purifying Flames is a very good spell, but it is not enough to kill 5 enemy heroes, and Lord knows you can't hit buildings. Yeah, he's down here in Hope for Commence. He's just too teamwork oriented, similar to like, not quite as much as Io, but kind of similar. By the way, I didn't even mention Io mid. Even so, he's still in Hope for Commence. Oh, let me think of one. Um, Office Depot. Office Depot is probably going to go in on the table. He can definitely be the driving force of the reason you're winning the game. The problem that he has, OD, is depending on what build you go, you're pretty much always going to be lacking something. You can go the insane right click build with like Witchblade and Hurricane Pike, or you can go like Yasha and Kaya or Meteor Hammer. You will always have something that is really strong, but you always have a weakness as well, and that is something that the enemy team can exploit. But if you have a really good mid lane matchup, which you oftentimes have at least a good one, you can hit a point where you just walk up and kill people, and that's very good. It's very despair inducing to see a OD just walking towards you and like put you in gay baby jail and then smack you a few times and you die. Sometimes you don't even get out of GBJ. Sometimes he just hits the ulti and you die in there. You die in there. So on the table for him, good potential, but it's definitely not a designated strategy. You want to be one of at least two people on your team that is doing okay. Pango. Hmm. If you if you build for it and you go Aghanim Scepter, it's like pretty possible. And you can just sort of instantly win team fights, but you do need help. That's the thing. You need a little bit of help from the rest of your team in order to take advantage of your ultimate. But Aghanim Scepter really gives him a lot of 1v9 potential because of the additional swashbuckle attacks that proc out of him during Shield Crash, which also happened during his ultimate. So yeah, on the table for him. But you need to be like super far ahead, and your team needs to like recognize that you're super far ahead and help you win the game. It's a very collaborative 1v9. But it is on the table. PA, yep. Yep. As far as consistent physical damage output goes, she's not quite as good as Drow. She is a little bit more burst-oriented, but the thing about her is that she has 50% evasion. More if you go for the talent, or I think even more now, because it's tied to the innate, I think. And they made Blur her basic ability. Fucking useless spell. Oh well, you can farm Ancient Stacks with it. Yeah, PA, this is a tale as old as time, bro. This is one of the basic blocks of Dota, is being a PA and being allowed to farm up BKB, Desolator, Basher, Satanic, sometimes Abyssal Blade, and then maybe an Aghanim Scepter, depending on what the hell it does that patch. And then you can just pull up and just boop, boop, boop. It's like, you know that game at the carnival where you shoot the ducks with the BB gun? Yeah, you are the guy holding the BB gun, and the ducks are the enemy team. And you just go bounce back and forth between them and fucking kill them. Similar to Bloodseeker that I mentioned at the start of the game. Similar to Lycan as well. Just an oppressive amount of physical damage. The big advantage that you have over Bloodseeker and Lycan, though, is with Battle Fury, because of the way that your kit works, you can farm like crazy, and you don't have to commit. In order to do that, Lycan has to hit his ultimate, and Bloodseeker oftentimes needs to like pop everything else too in order to make that happen. But as PA, you know, you can get solo kills without popping BKB, and that's like kind of a privilege. Not a privilege, but it's very notable, and it's very contributed towards her 1v9 capabilities. So we're going to put her in designated strategy. She is up there with Medusa and Naga Siren as like one of the 1v9est heroes in Dota. Phantom Lancer, for sure. For sure, especially with illusory armaments. What they did to his innate has raised the floor of his damage so insanely high, while also expanding the ceiling the exact same amount. The current version of PL 100% can, but even other previous versions of PL, as long as they don't have counterplay, you know, one of the advantages of PL is there are items that counter you, but those items don't fully like shit on you. They have to pick a hero like Leshrac or Sven or something like that. Buying a Battle Fury or buying a Mjolnir hurts you, but it doesn't end your game. So there are many drafts where as PL, your objective is kind of to 1v9 because you know the enemy team can't really fuck with you once you hit critical mass. And it's just a matter of hitting that point, which often means sacking your team, which means that your team would like to sack you back. But once you hit that critical mass, no such option exists. You know, you're not great at hitting buildings, you're not great at taking Roche, but you can do both of them. And the sheer difficulty of stopping a PO once the ball gets rolling really pushes him. So he's on the table. Phoenix. You can 2v8 as Phoenix. You can 2v8 because you happen to have like a Ringmaster or a Medusa on your team who's able to protect the egg to an extreme degree. But outside of those situations, you can't 1v9. And we're willing to do like ideal build, right? Which I guess for him would be something like Shiva's Guard, Glipnir? No, Shiva's Guard already does the expansion. I was gonna say some kind of Chasm Stone item. Refresher, Sanjin Kaya, uh, fuck it, you have a Meteor Hammer also, because why not? It's just not enough on Phoenix, unfortunately. But if you have a little bit of teamwork, you can do a metric shitload of damage, and you can 2v8. But you need a lot more teamwork than I would say these guys have. And then even in that combination, you know, maybe not Ringmaster, but like you have a Medusa to protect the egg, it's really the Medusa's 1v9 going on here. But you are a great backup dancer, similar to a couple of other heroes in this tier. Primal Beast, like low-key, for real. For real, for real, on God. Tough shit. The Aghanim Scepter refresher build that I've seen on this hero a couple of times is crippling. It is insane how much AoE damage he is able to poop out while breaking everyone, while also getting stuff like status resistance, while also producing armor, while also dealing a metric shitload of magical damage from trample all by itself before Aghanim Scepter. There's a lot going on for Primal Beast. You do need to go that Aghanim's refresher build, but you can do it for sure. You know, not every element of his kit is designed for the 1v9. His ultimate is probably the weakest link in that chain, but you can definitely do it off the strength of his Aghanim Scepter and all of his talents that boost it incidentally in various ways. On the table for Primal Beast. Very strong hero. You can win a game by Primal Beast if you're good enough, all by yourself. Puck. You know, his Aghanim Scepter really helps you here. If Puck didn't have the Aghanim Scepter effect that Puck currently has, it's a lot harder to 1v9. But because you have that, yeah, on the table for sure. What you do is you go Witchblade, Blink Dagger, and then you go Maelstrom. Or sometimes you go Maelstrom before the Witchblade, but you do need both of them. So you go those 3 items, you have Bottled Treads in your inventory, you pick up Aghanim Scepter. Then you just start upgrading. So you go Mjolnir, you go Parasma, you can eventually drop some kind of item in favor of Refresher, and then you can like pop, and the right clicks from both of the Dream Coils will go out according to your attack speed, dealing full damage the entire time, even if they are spell immune. Yeah. It's difficult as Puck, it really is. But if you build for it and you're ready to do it, as long as you can land those juicy Dream Coils on 3, 4, 5, you can 1v5. It's very good. Problem is the people who you don't put the Dream Coil on, because it's even with all of that ridiculous right-click damage, oh, and there's a Daedalus mixed in there somewhere too. Even with all of that ridiculous right-click damage, it can be hard for Puck to man-fight in the late game. You just don't necessarily have the body if you're going all those items. But still, on the table for sure, as Puck. Pudge. I think the way that you 1v5 as Pudge is quite different. Similar to, it's another early game thing. Because what you can do is you can go Conraps in an extremely early Aghanim Scepter, and then you can just walk at people, and there's not much they can do about it. You can become monstrously tanky, and he has the snowball potential. It's a bit Magical Christmas Land. You need to snowball and never slow down. But if you can, the snowball kind of secures itself as a result of Flesh Heap. Not to mention just how insanely you can scale, because like a couple of other heroes on this list, it's possible for you to deal damage while stunned, which is a very good thing to do. If you're 1v9ing, prepare to get stunned a little bit. Pudge can handle that. With a Plum. Magical Christmas Land for him. Bloodstone is quite good on him, by the way, if you're going to be doing that. I've seen Carry Pudge this patch. I've lost to it, sadly. I don't play Carry Pudge because I have a fucking functioning brainstem, but hey, you know. Pugna. Nope. Pugna is very cool, and Pugna can do a lot of things, but being able to 1v9 against 5 heroes is very difficult. There are games where you can kind of play on creative mode where you get super far ahead, and you can hit buildings, which is very nice thanks to Nether Blast. But when push comes to shove and they go on you, you do not survive. You know, I've gone BKB on Pugna before, it helps, but now that you can't stack it with Decrepify, it's really difficult to stay alive when the enemy team decides to freaking get you. So you kind of have all of the downsides of Drow Ranger with none of the consistent physical damage upsides. So we're going to put Pugna down here and hope for Commence. You get Orchided and you die. Queen of Pain. Queen of Pain is like, you can be a problem as Queen of Pain, but like you die once in the late game and it's hard, man. I'm going to put her in Magical Christmas Land. If you go the sort of typical build, well, what you would do, similar to Puck, you go Maelstrom. Probably not. There have actually been times where it's like a decent idea to go Maelstrom Queen of Pain, but not for the last couple of years has that really been a thing that you do. You probably go Witchblade and lean a little bit more into the right-click side of things while still maintaining Aghanim Scepter and being tanky as shit. So like Shiva's Guard, Octarine Core, Parasma, Aghanim Scepter, pick two. Yeah, maybe a Wind Waker. You can become a really, really tanky Queen of Pain who's very difficult to kill. Bloodstone, Wind Waker Bloodstone, that's what you do. Those are the two that you pick. And if you do that, you can become kind of an immovable object, but you are not so much a unstoppable force. You are a stoppable force, actually. I was correct. Yeah, a lot to like about her, but 1v9ing as Queen of Pain, tall order. Razor. Yes, not quite a designated strategy, but one of the cool things about Razor is you can do the Aghanim Scepter refresher build. And when that's the case, not only are you doing damage while stunned, but you're also extremely fast, you're also sucking up damage, and you're able to hit buildings. You're a bit timing dependent, but it's not nearly as bad as like a black hole. And you can fight without refresher, which is good on the table for Razor, but it's definitely not a designated strategy. It's sort of like, oh god, like when you're playing Razor and you're having a great game, but the rest of your teammates are kind of struggling. There is a legit feeling deep in your chest that's like, oh no, please don't make me do this. Like, please don't make me 1v5, please. Ricky, Ricky is good, but 1v5ing is a tall order. I think he's in Magical Christmas Land because the counterplay is so obvious. Not just in the capacity of trying to get true sight of him, but also like just Force Staff, bro. Like Force Staff, Ghost Scepter, Glimmer Cape, like so many different items work amazing on Ricky. And the counterplay is something you like can again, you just sort of build it on accident. Torta Delini, half of his support builds will have you accidentally countering Ricky, which is great. But there are games where you can get like a nullifier stupidly fast. Like if you're playing mid Ricky against like a Puck or something like that, you can wind up really doing a lot of damage, and you counter certain heroes so hard. So you need to snowball out of control, and you need to have like an enemy draft that are primarily vulnerable to you. And that's Magical Christmas Land, baby. Merry Christmas. Ringmaster. Nope. You're a cool hero. I like you a lot. You can't 1v9. You can't even try, brother. You see what your Aghanim Scepter does? Aghanim Scepter on Ringmaster, by the way, if you don't know, it gives him 2 escape back charges, and then whenever you use it and it ends, it just casts all of his spells. It just, a bunch of knives fly out, and then it does the little like AoE magical smack of Crack the Whip, or Tame the Beast, or whatever it's called. I know Valve has a bit of a history with Crack the Whip, if you guys remember. Y'all remember Artifact? I didn't play that shit. I play games that are good. Rubik, Magical Christmas Land, as if any... Rubik can do some really messed up stuff. One of my favorite pro games of all time, it was Bet Boom versus Tundra back when they had 9 as their mid laner, and he was like bringing mid Rubik back in a similar way to Justin Timberlake bringing Sexy back, where he managed to steal Techie's minds, and the game went on for like 90 minutes against GPK Snapfire with Divines, back when Core Snapfire was a thing. This was Snapfire Rubik in the mid lane, by the way. And he managed to steal mines and put down like literally like 200 mines, like all across the map. And the Rubik wound up losing. But the reason I'm bringing that up is because it's demonstrative of the kind of things that Rubik can do. If the game needs to be delayed, and there are heroes on the enemy team who have those spells, Rubik can do it. If the game needs to be closed out by abilities that are very good at hitting towers, such as Nether Blast, for example, Rubik can steal those, and Rubik can do it. But it's very difficult, because you have to steal the exact abilities for the exact situation you need. And as far as the damage output goes, you know, you can steal Black Hole, you can steal Echo Slam is kind of an awkward one on him, but you can do it. You can steal Doom, you can steal Dawnbreaker ulti. There's all sorts of stuff that you can steal in order to do it, but you need the stars to align in order to 1v9 as Rubik. But because you are playing as Rubik, the stars always could align. Other heroes will never get that opportunity. Rubik, there is a chance. And because of that, we're going to put him in Magical Christmas Land, of which there are thousands of permutations for Rubik and Rubik alone to enjoy. Sand King, Malrine. You know, you could do a lot on saying you can win team fights in the blink of an eye on him, but as far as actually ending the game goes, Stinger does not hit buildings, so we're going to put him in Magical Christmas Land. You get really far ahead, especially if you're playing as a mid, you can do a lot, but yeah. Shadow Demon. No. Even if you're doing the super silly Manta style stuff, where you're playing as like a position 1 Shadow Demon, you can't 1v9. It's really just not an option for you. Your kid is too teamwork oriented, not just from Disruption, but also from Disseminate, and, you know, is it your Ags or your Shard that makes your ulti heal? Whichever one, it doesn't matter. A lot of your kit is built around teamwork and amplifying what other heroes can do. Another great backup dancer, similar to like a Phoenix or Largo, but they themselves are not the star of the show. They're not Britney. Boom, ba-dum, ba-dum, but Shadowfiend, 1v9. Yep. Yep, yep, yep. Not only is he 1v9 capable, primarily because of the absurd physical damage output he does, and also the ridiculous impact of his ultimate, but the people who play Shadowfiend are like, they hope they get a chance. Oh god, they want to be freaking Ken Kaneki up in this bitch. They want to just like beat the fuck out of everyone, including their teammates, and then everyone glazes them in the post game and showers them in friend requests. They want to get an email with panties in it. Designated strategy for Shadowfiend. You know why. Part of it's a personality thing. Shadow Shaman, low-key. Low-key designated strategy. I said there were going to be a couple supports up here, dude. Shadow Shaman is one of them. Aghanim Scepter, not Aghanim Scepter anymore, so you can walk your pet ant. What's it called? Urnaconda, I think is what it's called. That refresher, you split push like a motherfucker. And the fun thing about that split push is you drop it and you dip. There is very little safety exposed to you. You are extremely limited by cooldowns, but you are a split push win condition as Shadow Shaman. The side lane bandit will catch you fucking slipping, and your racks will fall like ashes through your fingers. Designated strategy for Shadow Shaman. BOTs, blank, Aghanim Scepter, not Aghanim Scepter anymore, Refresher, Shard. Not necessarily in that order. You go those items, you can win a game of Shadow Shaman in a 1v5 situation. You need the enemy team to make some macro mistakes, but you can do it. You can do it. Designated strategy. Not only can you do it, you should. Yeah, there we go. Shadow Shaman is up here. Him and Crystal Maiden are the only supports up here right now. NP and Naga don't count. Neither does Gyro. Stop playing him as a pause 4. It's bad. Silencer. Oh, man. You know what sucks about him is, like, he actually is in Magical Christmas Land. Not off the virtue of him actually silencing people, but because of the strength of Glaives of Wisdom. The infinite scaling, being able to steal int, the sheer quantity of damage, the bouncing, you know, it's something that shouldn't happen ever. Anyone who plays Silencer and, like, goes, like, Midas, Witchblade, Dragonlance, like, you shouldn't win. Ever. Even in these situations where it's a 1v5. But in theory, it is similar to, who was the other hero that I mentioned? Who had all of the, oh yeah, Pugna. All of the downsides of Drow, but, like, even worse. You know, if you think about it, Global Silence is kind of a BKB. Chew on that. Magical Christmas Land for Silencer, and you need to steal 100 int in the first 15 minutes of the game. Skywrath. Not really, man. You know, Skywrath is awesome. I really like him, and when you're ahead as this hero, it feels really good. It'll feel even better when they give him back his 40% spell lifesteal, but being able to 1v5 the characters as like a win con is just not, no. You can't do it. You can't hit buildings, you're limited by cooldowns, you're not so much limited by mana cost and cooldowns too much, especially when you get Aghanim Scepter or Nocturne and stuff like that. And your physical or your magical damage output is nuts, but you can't Torm, you can't Rosh. I guess you can help Torm, but you can't Rosh, you can't take buildings, you're missing out on a ton of boxes, but you can kill. You can kill. Keep a Desolator and an AC in your backpack for after the fight. That's the only way you can do it. Slardar. You can... The snowball from a good Slardar lane into a very fast Echo Saber Blink against supports who don't have built-in mobility / defensive tools, like Warlock... I don't know. Warlock... I'm looking at the characters on the screen right now to try to guess. Ogre Magi, sure. You can just feast on them and snowball really hard, and eventually you graduate. You're no longer beating up the sumo babies, you're beating up the fully grown sumos, which is great. Slardar, you can be a like primary damage output hitter on your team, but you can't hit buildings, which is tough. Rosh and Torm, though, you check those boxes very nicely. You colored that shit in perfect, like on a Scantron. Slark, yep. Yep. He's on the table. You need a little bit of chaos going on in order to truly get the 1v5 going. You do need a little bit of help. Or you need the enemy team to just like constantly be split under your wards. and not buy like Ghost Scepters, I guess, or you could buy a Nullifier. But yeah, it's difficult to Slark. You really do need a lot of help, but your character kit is kind of designed in a way where if you can start to 1v5, you can probably end it 1v5 because of Essence Shift and the rolling effects of it. You know, the permanent agi that you steal, it's whatever. It's not that big of a deal. But Essence Shift itself, especially once you get that level 25 talent, whoo baby. Having 400 agility is something that only a handful of heroes in the game can do. I don't even think Drow can do that, but Slark can do that. Drow probably can't. Well, I don't know. 5 butterflies? Ironwood Nut? I guess every agility hero can do it thanks to Ironwood Nut. Yeah, Slark on the table for him. Snap. Ugh. You know, I used to say designated strategy for Snapfire because of the triple shot, but these days not so much. I actually kind of want to put her in Hope for Commence. Yeah. The right click build on her just isn't what it was. It's not really a thing you can do anymore, but you can still be extremely impactful as a result of her kit. Shotgun scales, and Lord knows what her ultimate can do. It's kind of crazy. I've talked a lot in this tier list about being able to create the game state that you need, especially being able to delay the progress of the game. Humorously enough, Snapfire has the unique capacity to use her ultimate to clear creep waves before they get in range to disable backdoor protection. Which I have done, and I've seen other people do before, and it feels dumb as shit when you do it, but like, you know, if you drop Macropyre in front of the creep wave that's incoming, they get close enough to disable, and the enemy team can just like walk around Macropyre or just tank it. But Snapfire, they're not getting close. They're not getting close enough. Sniper, for sure. For sure. He is not so great at wave management, though he can certainly do it with Shrapnel. He's another sort of hyper carry who doesn't go Manta style. But the big thing about Sniper is that he makes high ground a B word, bro. Oh my god. And he can delay the game through virtue of that alone. You know, how productive is his time going to be? Not very. You've got the struggle camps near the base, and then maybe someone can teleport to the enemy money tunnel. It's difficult, but you can do it. And then Sniper's strategy is such that if you're ahead, you can be your team's like only real damage output. You can have a team full of just control and CC, and Sniper is the one just wailing on people because he didn't have to go defensive items. And yeah, you can be a 1v5 character. You need maybe a little bit more help, but the reason that Drow wasn't up here is because of Shrapnel and the further extended attack range that can go even further thanks to neutral items. Yeah, designated strategy. You're so far away that you can't get jumped, is the idea. Though there are exceptions. Magnus Spectre, actually another exception, and another character who can kind of go in designated strategy. It's not nearly as practical as it used to be in prior versions of Spectre, but this character is still very much so capable of like toughing out a very difficult game and coming back to finish the job later on. And that's great. The sheer scaling off of dispersion, meaning that every single point of tank is actually more on you than on almost any other character. Desolate has a ridiculous amount of pure damage, also has a great synergy with Bloodthorn. The amount of single target physical damage this Spectre can put out is some of the highest in the game. And unlike CK, she doesn't have to use her ulti to do it. She can use basic abilities plus Manta style, and that's ridiculous, and it's pure. Pure damage. Pure damage is very good. Designated strategy, you have Haunt to kill supports on accident. You kind of tick almost every box, but like not completely. You're not great at hitting buildings, but your stats are so ridiculous that you kind of are, actually. Yeah. If only you could proc your innate on buildings. Spectre would be the ultimate 1v9 hero. Spritbricker. A Spritbricker is not, no. You can't 1v5 as this hero. You can be annoying as shit to 5 heroes, and you can delay the game, for sure, but you are not going to be the win con. He's down here in Hope for Commence. Storm, yes, because of the Aghanim Scepter. I genuinely think he's in designated strategy. If you've watched every single one of my videos, this will probably be the 5th or 6th time that I have talked about Storm Aghanim Scepter and what it does to this hero and what it does to a game state. It is atrocious what this character is capable of. And you have Refresher that you're able to make good use of, and you can go items like Parasma and Daedalus and Mjolnir and all that shit. It's very similar to Puck, but it's even less committal, because it isn't attached to your ultimate, and it has a very low cooldown, and also you're a Storm Spirit. Not to mention Galvanized, and the strength that can give you when it comes to 1v5ing and the snowball effects. Storm can win a game entirely by himself. All it takes is for a like well-timed zip into Roche Pit when all 5 heroes are there, because they thought that everyone else was dead. You know, and maybe Storm is the only person on his team alive. But in those situations, I gave credit to Earthshaker for it. Storm can do the exact same shit, but less committal. and you're a storm. So you have the rest of your hero to work with. It's not even your primary feature as a hero. So yeah, Ags and Parasma and all the other bullshit that you can do, Shard, the level 25 bouncing overload talent, all of that stuff combined, you can rely on Storm to like 1v5. Yeah, he's up here. Maybe a slightly hot take. It's going to look weird if you don't hear my discussion and you skip to the end, but yeah, that's why he's there. Sven is very capable of 1v5ing. The question is whether or not it's a designated strategy. I think it is. I think it is. His ability, I talked about it earlier with Alchemist, being able to jump in and just instantly kill someone as your own gank package. The thing about Sven is when you do that, first off, you're way tankier. Second, you're not just hitting one guy, you're hitting several at the same time. You're vulnerable to kiting, you're vulnerable to a lot of defensive items, but the sheer quantity of multi-target damage that Sven is able to put out makes him kind of like PA, except you don't jump from target to target. You jump on one guy, throw out Stormhammer, boom, boom, with Echo Saber, and if both were dataless crits, they just fucking die. And that's very good. And you farm extremely fast and consistently, even if the lane is bad. He's one of the best heroes to 1v5 on. It's just a matter of whether you can kill them before they're able to pop defensive items that ruin you. Which Glimmer Cape, by the way, doesn't actually work that well. I was just talking about it, but it's actually not the case. Yeah, Sven. Designated strategy. Through sheer quantity of damage. Techies. Oh man, the 9v1. Techies, like, his ability to 1v9 is not tied to his ability to actually, like, kill enemy heroes and win the game. It's almost entirely based around the ability to delay the game and to make opponents second guess everything that they do. It's a psychological victory, not one that is like mathematical on the screen. You're not shifting the code of Dota itself. You're instead rewriting the codes of your opponent's brains. Magical Christmas Land for techies. He's a bit of a weird case though. T.A. Tonki Ong. She is like she can't do it. But she can. The thing about her is her insane damage off of Meld, combined with Daedalus and Desolator and all the other insane damage, so you can one-shot people, and that's really good, being able to one-shot people, and you hit buildings really well, and you have some cool defensive abilities. But at the same time, like, you're very weak to a lot of things, and you're really reliant on BKB, because unlike a lot of the other characters up there, you cannot, in theory, deal damage while stunned. And that's tough. But you can play very oppressive, and if you snowball really hard, you can keep one-shotting people for a very long time. Before they're able to get Ghost Scepter off, for sure. And then if they do, it's awkward, but hey. Yeah, Magical Christmas Land for TA. Terrorblade, for sure. Illusion carries are up here for a reason. You are limited in a similar way to Night Stalker in the sense that a good chunk of the game you're going to be shit. But in an ideal world, Terrorblade, the moment when you don't have Metamorphosis anymore is when they are all respawning in the fountain. So they're not, like, they're on cooldown to be alive. So you have a bit of an advantage over Night Stalker because you create that situation. Whereas with Night Stalker, you don't get to pick. Also, you do get to pick with Metamorphosis. And, well, Night Stalker you get to pick with Dark Ascension, but you get the idea. Terrorblade is very much so a 1v5 kind of hero. Also, a big advantage over Night Stalker is the farming. He can farm and actually put himself in the position where his net worth advantage is so obscene that he is able to do that. So yeah, designated strategy. And he doesn't even have to snowball. He can just play normal Terrorblade and still 1p5. Tide. Nope. Magical Christmas Land. The carry Tide build that we saw in 7.40, where they gave him the level 15, or what was it, 20 talent, where you automatically cast Anchor Smash upon Blubber proc, that made him a bit of a 1v5 hero. Because of the lifesteal loop. But nowadays, not so much. He's in Magical Christmas Land, I think. You can do a lot of stuff, and you can certainly contribute, and there is still that idea, especially with the fish scaling, that over time, you can grow to a point where you can, like, tank the entire enemy team for a long time, and you can hit buildings with Anchor Smash. But that's a very tall order. That's Magical Christmas Land for Tide. Timbersaw. Also probably Magical Christmas Land. There's too much counterplay. That's the thing. You're weak to, because you have everything, you are also weak to everything. You are weak to break, you are weak to silences, you are weak to percentage-based damage, you are weak to anti-mobility tools, you are kind of weak to everything. But in theory, if the enemy team somehow doesn't have any of that shit, and they're all strike heroes, you're just playing against 5 Slardars, then yes, in theory, you could 1v5 as Timbersaw. So Magical Christmas Land for him. We might speed this up a little bit for the last few. Tinker, designated strategy. You know, the current incarnation of Tinker with the missiles, he's like a super dead hero, which I'm fine with. But historically speaking, and probably in the future as well, he is one of those characters that he can just run away with the game if the Tinker player is mechanically skilled enough and knows what they're doing in the macro game. If that is the case, you can absolutely 1v5 as Tinker. The current incarnation, not so much. But this is the classic, like the thing that people say about Tinker is like, yeah, he eats the entire map and is a total raid boss, but you kill him twice and you win the game. That's because Tinker's default strategy is to be that raid boss who's able to 1v5 the enemy team. Kill him twice and win the game is true for everyone, but for Tinker, it's the only solution. So yeah, designated strategy. Tony. Depends on if you've got a quarry to settle. Am I right, fellas? Yeah, it's actually on the table for him because of the sheer right-click damage and his ability to split push. This is something that is kind of weird. He takes like every box. Now that they've taken away his shard where he can't get permanent tree anymore, it's not quite as good. He's a lot more teamwork oriented now because the physical damage output isn't nearly as consistent as it was. But it's still, like, he's still tiny. Like, let's keep it a buck, fellas. He's still tiny. Yeah, it's on the table. You can snowball in the early game based off of your magical damage and toss relocations, and then turn into this ridiculous physical damage output machine. On the table for him. Treant. No, it's Treant. The Aghanim's upgrade is not enough. People still haven't figured out how to use it yet. Troll Warlord. You know, I wouldn't call it a designated strategy for Troll because you have that window. It's a very limited window compared to something like a Terrorblade, right? Where you pop meta and you have it for like the better part of a minute. Troll Warlord, you got like 6.5 seconds. So you're great at hitting buildings, and you can 1v5 for sure. Like if you hit a certain apex point where you're able to like use your ulti to lock down a mobile hero while also using shard to like kill supports on accident, it can happen for sure. But it's definitely not a designated strategy the way that it is for some of these other heroes. You're not quite as consistent. You don't have as big of a window in order to like do your thing, but you're amazing at hitting buildings and you can create checkmate situations. If you pop troll ulti while you're hitting a building, you will continue to hit the building forever. Outside of some really crazy shit going on. 4 staff, maybe, I don't know. Yeah, on the table for troll. Dusk! No, you're way too teamwork oriented. You can one-shot heroes if you go like the Desolator Daedalus Walrus Punch build, but even so, it's one guy. You know, the magical Christmas land for him is you get the, is it 15% Walrus Punch chance on right-click? And you just do that for the rest of every single right-click is a Walrus Punch. A BKB piercing knockup stun. If you could do all of that, then I guess you could win, but that's not going to happen. So he's in hope for commence. Underlord. No, he's also down here. He can hit really hard with Atrophy Aura, but he has no other abilities that help him right-click. He's not very good at tanking towers. He is good at like creating good situations because of Portal and the ability to clear out waves with his Q. But for the most part, no. Yeah, Underlord himself is never a win condition. Undying. He's up here. He's in Magical Christmas Land, actually. Part of me wants to put him higher. Low-key. I'm going to put him higher. Core Undying is scary, man. If you're in a good game and he gets to, like, dumpster the lane, and Undying can run away with the game, and if you kill him, it's like, not as big of a deal because of his Ceaseless Dirge. He just spawns right back up and ready to go. You get an Aghanim Scepter, he can be a win condition. He can't hit towers, unless he steals so much strength that he is able to hit towers, but, like, you know, him being able to hit a tier 3 tower is the least of your concerns if he's at that point. But being able to just scale up to such a ridiculous degree, you know, you go like Ags, Octarine, Assault Cuirass. I've seen Echo Saber a couple times because of the Rotting Mitts remnants. Yeah, well, you have to go Shard these days. But it can happen. And I think it's more likely than Magical Christmas Land. But you need to be playing Core Undying, and you need to start the game with the objective of 1v5ing, and you need to have an amazing lane, and your mid-game needs to be flawless. You can die once on this hero. You can even die twice and still manage to do it. So he's going to go in on the table. It's definitely not a designated strategy, but good lord, if the Undying is trying to do it, he can do it. It's not Magical Christmas Land for him, is the point that I'm trying to make. Ursa. It's tough. It's actually kind of tough. When you had Shard and you were able to use that in response to incoming CC to use the status resistance, it was a lot easier to 1v5. But Ursa is a single target damage hero. The advantage that he has is the ridiculous amount of burst. It's not quite as good as PA, it's not quite as consistent, but in exchange, you have a ridiculous amount of status resistance and damage reduction on your ultimate. And you can get those cooldowns still very low with things like Aghanim Scepter. So it's on the table for Ursa, but it's kind of tough. And you can't enter the 5v5 team fight expecting to get a rampage. You need to like chain the kills. You know what I mean? It's on the table for him. Quite strong. Quite strong. Venge. Man, if she still had her free refresher orb whenever she died with Aghanim Scepter, it was like a maybe. But now it's a magical Christmas land because you need to build right-click Venge and you need everything to go well. I've had a guy ask me in a couple of comments lately, like, what do you think of core bench? Is it still a thing? And I've told him every time, like, no, I don't think it's a thing anymore. And then next video, it's like, what about now? I wish you the best, guy. But no, I do not think core bench is very good right now. But it does still exist. And being able to, I just talked about how Undying, if you kill him, it doesn't matter. Venge is also kind of true. So we're going to put her in Magical Christmas Land. If she still had her refresher, she'd probably be up here and on the table. But she hasn't no more, thank goodness. That shit was not balanced. Venomancer, nope. Nope. Even if you're doing the Aghanim Scepter right-click damage stack stuff, it's still not good. It's down here with AA. It's very similar to AA's situation, in fact. You can be extremely strong, and you can be a very hard contributor. He's maybe one of the 2v8 type of heroes from his offensive capabilities and the BKB piercing slows. But yeah, on balance, we're just gonna... He's hope for commence. He's down here. Viper. Magical Christmas Land. You need to snowball like a motherfucker, and you need to go the right builds. So the defensive stuff with Aghanim Scepter, if you are 1v... Listen to me. If you went like 5-0 in the mid lane, and you're dumpstering everyone you see, do not stack defensive items. I know BSJ told you to do that, but like, don't do it. Like, just go like mobility, actually, is what you want on this character. If you can get an early Blink Dagger on Viper, it's terrifying. You play a lot like a Huskar, actually. Like, instead of Huskar ulting in, you're now a Viper blinking on top of them, and you have full HP. And a shitload of natural magic resistance. There's a lot to like about it. It's very difficult to 1v5 as Viper. You can get that early advantage and then pass the torch to your carry later on. But Magical Christmas Land, it can happen if you just keep the snowball going. Visage. There is, they took away the facet where you get bonus money when you kill people with Soul Assumption. That was a big part of his 1v5 potential before. But you're great at hitting buildings, you can scout really well, you have great solo pickoff potential because of Silent as the Grave. You're lacking a little bit defensively. Gravekeeper's Cloak is not enough to get the 1v5 off, and BKB isn't too relevant on you because the birds are still vulnerable and they're going to kill your babies. But still, I would say Magical Christmas Land for Visage. It can happen, but like, you need to like be constantly fed enemy supports and have them not respond to you when you're split pushing in order to kill tier 3s. If you can do all that, it's great. Void Spirit, you can carry a game on Void Spirit if you go the right click stuff. It's sort of fallen out of favor, but I've gone like every item on Void Spirit, I think. Right now, the way you do it with the Spirit Vessel is not very 1v5 coded, but if you're willing to do one of my all-time favorite builds that I was going to mention, you go like Basher... You go like Orchid, Manta, Basher, Bloodthorn. And the idea is that you just do a ridiculous amount of single target damage on relatively low cooldowns, and then also you just are a Void Spirit. It's like you have this massive right-click damage package built on top of your kit, and then you also just have the rest of your kit. Yeah, Void Spirit is on the table for sure. His scaling is really, really strong. Aghanim Scepter is a very potent 1v5 tool. Yeah, when the BKBs are away, purple guy comes out to play. Warlock. Yep. Yep. You can 1v5 as Warlock. In fact, you should 1v5 as Warlock. Girls' Night, as I often like to call it, is one of my favorite builds in Dota for very good reasons. Because people think like, oh, one golem, it's fine. 4 while you're Fatal Bonds with a bunch of your friends right next to you? No. You're not going to survive the winter. Plus your Fatal Bonds twice. L plus ratio. Warlock is able to present himself as a massive win con because of the strength of Aghanims and Refresher and double Fatal Bonds. All of those things combined is not only enough for you to win the team fight against heroes who, frankly, shouldn't be losing to that, but they do, like Sven, for example, or like a Slark. The reason why, by the way, and this is like some sneak knowledge that not a lot of people know. The golem AoE burn damage is not like a debuff on the hero, it's a buff on the golem, and that means that they stack. So if you have 4, those like crazy radiance type ish things that are happening, yeah, they're all applying. There 4 of them at the same time, and that's difficult. That's difficult. And they hit buildings, and they're really good at just causing chaos in team fights, and they're a massive giant AoE BKB piercing stun, by the way, in case you forgot, and you can make them slow by stirring that soup. Warlock, it is a real strategy that you can do in pretty much every game to go Girls Night and go Axe Refresher and win the game. Designated strategy for Warlock. He's in the top tier, along with Crystal Maiden and who was the other support that was up here? Crystal Maiden and Shadow Shaman. Yep. Weaver, 100%. Super mobile, which is a really big, important part. I think he's on the table, actually, because if you do get focused and bursted and chain stunned, it's hard. Which means that if you are the 1 versus the 5, it's very difficult to play. But if you have the slightest bit of help as Weaver, you can snowball games like crazy. The amount of physical damage you can output is like not theoretically infinite, because bugs have a duration. But you can just 2-shot supports out of nowhere. You can box out with a ton of really strong carry heroes. You know, even the really good scalers, like, Terrorblade's a little dicey because his armor is so freaking high. But, like, Faceless Void, if you can survive the Chrono, you can box with him. CK, Drow, Bloodseeker, Lifestealer, Phantom Assassin, Sven, you can fight all of those heroes as Weaver. But you are a weak little bug. So you need to be careful. But it is on the table. It is on the table. You can snowball to a victory. Kind of a similar situation to Ursa. Wind Ranger. Not really. Not really. I kind of want to put her in Hope for Commends just to really drive home the fact that I hate carry Wind Ranger. We're not, though. We're going to put her in Magical Christmas Land because, again, if the team is constantly split and you're able to get those pickoffs one after another, you can eventually hit a point where you can kill people with your normal right clicks and you don't need to expend your ultimate every single time you want to kill someone. The rest of your kit is just not super conducive to it. Windrun is, especially if you go Aghanim Scepter, and you can do some of the most unfair shit in the game, where you right-click people while 100% evasion and invisible, and your right-clicks don't break evasion, and even if they can hit you and they can see you, you still get physical damage reduction, because that's fair. Magical Christmas Land for Wind Ranger. It can happen, but should not be something you're even really thinking about doing. Winter Wyvern, Hope for Commends. You can get some very nasty Winter's Curses at the end of the game. And your team can clap and cheer and go, woohoo, hooray! Witch Doctor, our 4th support in designated strategy. This hero is fucking crazy when you pop that Gris, and you get your Aghanim Scepter. It's pronounced Grigri, and you get that Aghanim Scepter. Oh my god. Whew. It's always at the worst time, because Grigri allows you to always get it at the time that it would be the worst for the enemy team. When they finally decide to charge high ground, when they go into the Roach Pit, when they group up close for a smoke, the wombo combo potential for Witch Doctor, literally by himself, is so insane that any form of control or CC on the enemy team affecting multiple heroes is a double kill for Witch Doctor minimum. And that doesn't even take into account Maledict. Yeah. Oof. The talents are pushing you towards it. Valve itself wants you to do it. You can flicker your heal so that Rubik can't steal it. It's lots of things are telling you to do this as Witch Doctor, and you should. You should go like, I'm not a big believer in the Blink Dagger. Aether Lens is like an after Ags thing. You go like Glimmer, or maybe go Scepter, sometimes even Aeon Disc, because you can still output damage, because when Valve made all the changes to damage sources, they actually forgot to do it for Witch Doctor, I'm pretty sure. So yeah, designated strategy for Witch Doctor. Aghanim Scepter, Death Ward. Oh, baby. Waif King. Waif King is like not so good, actually, at the 1v5. His split push is okay. Little similar to Shadow Shaman in the sense that the Skellies can spawn, but the thing is the Skellies are weak to things like Cleave or like a Maelstrom proc, whereas the Snakes are not. His big problem is like he is great at 1v1ing, and he's a total pain in the ass to kill because he's got Reincarnation, of course, one of the best spells in the game. But your crit is time limited. Your physical damage output outside of that is like kind of rough, especially because your Shard and Spectral Blade as it currently works is tied to it. There's a lot of things that kind of go against you for Wraith King in order to 1v1, or in order to 1v5. 1v1ing, you're great. You jump in the back and just pop a Disruptor like a grape under the heel of a Brazilian stripper. But outside of that, you're not gonna be able to replicate that on every other hero on the team. So yeah, Magical Christmas Land for Wraith King. You can definitely be the main character, but 1v5ing, tall order. Zeus, also kind of Magical Christmas Land. The problem is the counterplay is so easy. You need them to not buy any magic resistance or ways to initiate on you. You know, they buy a cloak and a harpoon and you're fucking toast, kid. but if they don't do that, you can do a metric load of magic damage to a lot of different heroes, and you can win a game from the jaws of defeat. But you have to snowball also hard as hell. So like everything that needs to go right, everything that can go right needs to go right for you to do it. So there we go. You know, when I started this, I thought this would be one of the shorter tier lists. I was wrong. Top tier, designated strategies. These are heroes who want to 1v5. These are characters who you pick with the idea of it in the back of your mind. They function as one-man win conditions that can snatch victory from the jaws of defeat. Some of them do it by being able to 1v5 the entire enemy team literally in the context of a team fight. Some of them do it by having insane split push and building damage win conditions. Some of them have it through wombo combo, such as Warlock and Witch Doctor. All of them, and some of them are able to just do it from the very beginning of the game, like a Broodmother, who kind of ends the game at the 10-minute mark, depending on how well she's able to perform. Those are designated strategies. On the table, these are characters that definitely can do it, but it's tough, and they usually need some kind of help. Either someone else on their team who is like really going hard and being able to help them, or they're snowballing to such an insane degree that they're able to play the game on creative mode, and their kit allows them to both snowball and take advantage of that situation. On the table for them. Magical Christmas Land. These are characters that, like, in theory can 1v9, but, like, good luck pulling that shit off in a game. Like, this is like a 1 in 100 games situation where you're able to do it. These characters do it from a variety of things. Most of the time, they're really good at one thing that can win a game. So Chen, for example, he can, similar to Brood, smack the early game hard enough that the game is resolved as soon as it begins. Other characters like Darkseer and Rubik need very specific heroes on the enemy team that provide the solutions for themselves. Medusa for Darkseer, for Rubik, I don't know, techies. Or characters that are able to enable, like they themselves do not do the work, but like Magnus, for example, is able to enable a 1v9 situation by grabbing people and allowing his underfarmed dying team to like get important kills and win. So yeah. And then lastly, Hope for Commence. These are heroes who cannot 1v5. The idea never enters your mind. Even if you're having an insane, the best game of your life, you do not yourself provide enough of a win condition to win the game by yourself. Most of these are pretty self-explanatory. A lot of them are supports. IO mid was considered. Still not enough. So there you go. This has been my Dota 2 1v9 tier list. Thank you very much for watching, and peace on planet Earth.